Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast, where we help you build your events empire by building profitable events while having fun at the same time. So we've had a bit of a break over the summer, really since the start of the year. I was really busy with my company Apps Events during the pandemic. I talked about that on the last call with James. We transitioned to doing a lot of work for Google, running a lot of online events, doing different stuff. So I was just really busy, but I've really missed doing the Events Podcast, and we're still getting great views. We're actually a top 10% of all podcasts in the world still, which is amazing, as it's a very niche thing. But I want to say a couple of things. Firstly, if you enjoy the podcast, please get in touch with me. Most people don't give me any feedback, and getting feedback really encourages me to make more episodes. Just email me at dan@appsevents.com, dan@appsevents.com. Even better, if you can give us a review anywhere you listen to the podcast, please stop right now in iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Cast, wherever you are, and please leave us a review, if possible 5 stars, of course, would be great. Back to the podcast. So we really focus on helping event entrepreneurs run amazing events, and that could be people who run events companies, but also just as many people, maybe more, are entrepreneurs who just run events as part of their business. They might run events to promote something else, they might run meetups, they might run one big conference a year. This is the kind of people I want to help, because I run events myself. So, this podcast is kind of like therapy for me, where I get help and assistance on how to run the event. So please, again, leave some feedback. And secondly, obviously there's a lot of costs associated with this podcast. I've got 2 people who help me out with editing and graphics and everything else. So if you're a sponsor, possibly you're a software company who sells to the event industry, and you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, like I said, it's a top 10% podcast, please get in touch. We'd love to talk to you, dan@appsevents.com, and it'd be great to talk. So thank you very much. And now on to the interview. Look, welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm really happy to have Kevin Koskella on the podcast. I was actually on Kevin's podcast, must have been like 3 or 4, maybe 4 years ago at this point, called Freedom Loving Podcast. Really cool podcast. Also, Kevin's an entrepreneur. And I want to talk a bit about, working online and multiple streams of income, all the interesting stuff. So Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, great to be here. And I can't believe that was 4 years ago. That's amazing.
Yeah, it must be. But before we recorded, we were just talking about podcasting. And I know you've got a podcast as well. We've both taken breaks, I think, and come back again. I mean, what do you find, how do you find the podcast, as a tool for, connecting with people? I'm curious, how often do you get, contacted by people that have listened to the podcast, and what sort of interactions do you get from it?
Well, historically with my podcast, that's what the main thing that I've gotten out of it is the connections. Yeah. And I started the podcast back in 2013, and I was doing a lot of interview shows and then some solo shows, but it wasn't so much that I necessarily was the guests that I had that I was connecting with, but people would once in a while reach out to me. And I ended up making friends with some people that lived in different parts of the world. And that was really interesting because one guy that reached out to me, he was in Brazil, and he said, "Oh, I love your show, and I'm in college, in university, and I want to do something in digital marketing, and I love freedom and all this kind of thing." And so I ended up having a chat with him and hired him to do some admin work for me. And then later, fast forward a couple more years, and we partnered up on my current business. And so that would have never happened if I didn't do the podcast. So.
Yeah, I've definitely made some great connections through it as well. I mean, it's weird because this podcast, I don't know if you look on listen notes, this podcast is apparently one of the top 10% of all podcasts, which I find staggering. I have no idea how that is possibly true,
Mm-hmm.
But someone says it is, so and I get contacted all the time. Every week someone will send me, almost every week. Sometimes I get a few, sometimes nothing. But, it's good to hear from people, a lot of the emails are just people pitching guests. There's the whole industry now of PR people pitching guests for the podcast, which is kind of annoying. But I like it. I think it's, if you like podcasts, I'm probably like you. I just listen to podcasts all the time, I've got AirPods on all the time. So for me, it's a great medium, and I like doing it, And I think but it changes because this podcast is the events podcast, and when I started it, we had a SaaS, we had an events ticketing system as a side project, and this podcast was to promote the the SaaS, but then we sold it, not for much money, but we did sell it. And then it's like, well, what's the point of this podcast? So I've kind of, even though it's the events podcast and we talk about people running events, I've got much more into just what I'm interested in, like talking to people like you about entrepreneurship and stuff like that, because it's like, I don't have something to sell from this podcast. So I can just talk to whoever I want, and if people don't listen to it, then it's not a big deal for me. It doesn't really bother me very much.
Yeah. That's exactly how I am. I'm doing it because I like to do it. And if I start feeling that pressure, like, oh, I've got to get another one out this week, then that's not good. I need to take a break.
It is, I do this every 2 weeks, and it still is a pressure because, like, it's easy to fall behind.
Yeah.
Now I've got a few episodes coming up, but then it's easy to miss you do a few things for a few weeks. But look, I want to talk about your entrepreneurial journey because it's really interesting to me. Because last time I spoke, I think you had a triathlon training site, and I know you've got a WordPress site. I don't know if you've still got the original one, but how did you? Because for me, like, I've ever since I read the 4-Hour Workweek, I love like making money online, businesses that can be semi-automated, businesses you can outsource things, businesses that can give you multiple streams of income, and you're someone that seems to be doing that, which is great. Like, I mean, how did it all get started? And would you say that's fair? Like, are you living a 4-Hour Workweek life pretty much?
Not exactly. But yeah, for me, I became unemployable. So I just decided that there was nowhere else to turn but to have some sort of business that I didn't have to have, a boss. And that was the only way that I could see moving forward. After I read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all that, I was like, yeah, this is the way I need to go. And
what was your job like? What did you do in the last time you had a job?
Oh, it was a long time ago. I was working at a software company, and I was living that, that movie Office Space.
Yeah.
I was that guy. I was I never enjoyed the cubicle lifestyle at all. I kind of almost, I almost kind of like made it into like a joke. I mean, I couldn't fathom that I was doing that, like sitting in a cubicle and reporting to a boss. And I really had a tough time with, and I was in Silicon Valley, and there's a lot of micromanagers there. And I had a couple of those bosses, and it was like, oof, that did not work for me at all. So yeah, I ended up just, I would do things like that, like the guy in the movie, where I actually did take apart my cubicle one time and the whole thing. Like,
Nice. And then how did you start thinking about entrepreneurship? Like, how did you have a side hustle, or did you just leave cold turkey, or how did you handle the move?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got laid off, and I immediately thought, well, I'll just interview, I'll get another job, because I was in Silicon Valley and it was like everything was booming, and I was like, I'll just get another job. And as I started to go out on interviews, I realized how much I hated all of it. Like, I couldn't see myself. I go into this interview, and I go into some big corporate, some building, and I'm like, I just can't see myself doing this. It just doesn't feel right. So as I was doing those interviews, I started to, I was working at the YMCA, the local YMCA, as a swim coach, and I had been a competitive swimmer. So I always thought, I could do some coaching, but never really gave myself the opportunity to do it because I thought I was too busy with other work. But then I had that opportunity. So I started coaching a little bit, and it was fun, and, it didn't pay anything, but it was fun. And so as I was doing that, I was like, well, maybe I could do some kind of business with this. I don't know, like, and I started learning about internet marketing. That's what we called it way back then. It was like, it wasn't digital marketing, it was internet marketing. Yeah. And I took a course on it. There was like an online course on how to build an internet business. And I just sort of was like, well, I know swimming really well. And there's a lot of people that are triathletes that are in my groups that I was coaching. And I thought, well, maybe there's a niche there of like triathletes looking for swimming help. So I started doing a lot of research on that. And then I learned how to just set up a web page and get a basic opt-in form on a site. So I just did that like step by step. It took me a few months, and then had that up. And then I just kind of came up with this name, Try Swim Coach. And I was doing kind of that and this and that. And I was training people. I was doing personal training, and I had a whole bunch of jobs. And I just kept going with this. And then at some point, Try Swim Coach started actually making money. And I was like, oh, I can make money, when I'm not there. And I thought that was amazing. So that's kind of how I got started with it.
what were your first customers? Like, how did you get your first customers? And like, how was it like? Can you remember when you finally got the first kind of PayPal notification that you actually got some money coming in?
Yeah, I remember it very clearly because I put up the website and I put up the buy. I put the buy button on the PayPal button, and I was selling a guide. It was like just a bunch of workouts, like swim workouts, and I had, it was a PDF file with really no design. It was just a blank PDF file with some workouts on it, and I was selling it for $15. And I put the page up. I got everything up, and then I was taking a trip to Europe, and I took the 10-hour flight and got there, and I hadn't checked my email. And back then I wasn't really checking email like necessarily every day. So, and I didn't think I would, have any reason to check my email. I was like, whatever. Yeah. And so I get there and a couple days go by and I'm like, oh, I should check my email. So I went down to the Bulldog Cafe in Amsterdam, and I paid the money to get on the computer there. And I had like all these emails from one guy that bought my guide, and he couldn't download it because I didn't set it up right. So I had no clue. Like, and he's like angry, and I'm like, oh shit! Like I screwed this whole thing up, and I was sweating, and I was like, but I eventually fixed that problem, and then I was like, wow, I made a sale when I was flying over the ocean, and I wasn't even there, and even though it didn't work, I made the sale, and so that was kind of my entry into the whole online marketing thing.
Fantastic. So you were selling guides, and did it branch out, or was that what did the business become after that?
Then I turned that into an ebook, and back then ebooks were like the thing, and I was able to raise the price so I could sell it for more, and I included all these other things with it, and then eventually I turned that into a DVD, and we had I had a DVD, and then we could sell the DVD with the book, and I had this whole product, and then that turned into a membership site, so I had a whole membership site, and then I could charge more money. So eventually that was a business. So it was like, it wasn't just a side hustle. It was actually my main business for a long time.
And you were, at the time, you were making money to get it started by doing coaching, like coaching swimming and things. Was that
that's exactly. And I never had coached before, so I didn't have a name. Nobody knew who I was or anything like that. So I had to like really gain a lot of experience doing live coaching, and I did lessons. I did private lessons and group coaching, and I did clinics and all these things. And that's how I learned enough to be able to write the book, because I couldn't just write the book and say, oh yeah, I'm this guy that is famous, and I hadn't coached anybody, I'd never done anything like that. I swam at a Division II college, and nothing earth-shatteringly amazing. So I had to do it through just learning as I go, and then taking a concept that I learned with like a student, and then putting it in my book and things like that.
And what you mentioned clinics, obviously this is a good to have some events angle, as this is the events podcast. But so you were running these clinics, like were you getting multiple people together for a swimming training session, or was it just one-on-one?
Yeah, I did the group clinic. So I had to go, and there were times where I was putting up signs around town like swim clinic, and just getting people in, and had to reserve like pool time and all that. I did a lot of clinics, actually. So
that was old school, like local marketing, going to different swimming pools, putting a sign up saying, come to this thing.
Yeah. Craigslist. I did everything, all the old school ways, and
Yep. But you can make quite good money from these kind of events, especially sporting events. Especially if it's a sport that people with disposable income do,
Yeah, and I sort of. Oh, go ahead.
No, Karen.
I sort of learned that as I went. When I first started, I wasn't charging that much. And then I realized I'm like, oh, I could charge a lot more. And so I started charging more and more and more, until like with the private lessons, I remember I got to a point where I had just one guy, and he was paying like, I think at that time, I think it was like $80 a lesson, which now that's probably, that's equivalent to like $120 or something. But then I was like, okay, I have one guy left, and that's fine. Like I priced myself out to the most I could charge. And the same thing with the clinics is like, I just kept raising it. And then I got to the point where I was doing like, I think it was like once a month I would do a clinic, and it would be like, we'd get 10 or 15 people paying a certain amount. And it's pretty good, but it's, those things are a lot of work, and I'm not really a fan of doing a lot of work. So it's like, I wanted the more passive income.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had various coaches. I mean, I've got quite into squash a couple of years ago, and I play golf. I play golf a lot, and I have a coach in Prague, and the golf coach is what is it like? I mean, it's over $100 an hour, and that's in Czech Republic, which is normally a much cheaper place than America.
Right.
And, so my golf coach, I mean, he makes good money by Czech standards. I mean, in the summer, it's long days, and he'll be out there doing lessons at 6, 7 in the morning all the way through to the evening, and then not work as much in the winter. But I met one golf coach who was, he just takes 3 months off in the winter and just go traveling and surfing and doing all this stuff. So you can make good money just being a straight sports coach. There's definitely plenty if that's what you want to do. I mean, I was a snowboard instructor. But unfortunately, that's not a high paying. It's a very low paying job. There's a lot of instructors, and even though there's a lot of jobs available, there's a few people making good money. Maybe you could make a course, but there's not much income in it. But other sports, like you can make good money as a coach. I'm sure as a swim coach now, triathlon coach, you can make good money.
Yeah, it's good money, but of course you're trading your time. If you're doing it live, it's just you're trading a lot of time, and most of them, it's just kind of like anything else. It's like most of the coaches, like either whether it's a triathlon coach or a swim coach or just like a health coach, the vast majority of them aren't making much.
No,
they're just struggling along, and they're most of the time it's like a side thing and trying to get it going.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, unless you do it just like I'm just going to book in every hour. I'm going to book in the whole day of, then it's just you can make $100 an hour, which is like, for a lot of people, it's quite a good income.
Sure.
But what is the site now? It's a community? That's how it ended up, is it? It's a triathlon community. Is that the main thing?
Yeah. That's basically it. And there's a membership site. And, I took, when COVID started, I basically put the whole thing on the back burner, and I have yet to go back to it. So it's there, it's still there, but I don't run it. I don't manage it. I really don't spend any time.
What does it make? I mean, like, can we get, you don't have to tell me numbers, but like to get a feeling, I mean, do you make like hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of this? Like, is it something that makes you any income still?
Not anymore. No, I don't make money on it. I mean, I do make a few, like a sale here and there. But I don't support it. So I almost feel bad because, I mean, they do get access to the membership, but I'm not involved with it. So there isn't, really any coaching other than what's in the membership. So right now.
Is there a whole discussion community taking place without you being even involved?
No, we had a Facebook group. I mean, we still have the Facebook group, but that sort of died out when COVID hit too, because I was sort of leading it and then I stopped altogether leading it. So that actually died out. And no, there's no real group left. It's kind of an abandoned project at this point.
But it's good like that. I mean, at least it's something it's still running. You could put time into it and make money from it if you wanted to, which is good.
Yeah. I could go back to it. But the problem was, for me, that it was like I wasn't I wasn't a triathlete. I didn't do triathlon, so I wasn't in the community in that way. And so there was a few years where I was like, I kind of want to get out of this, but it's just something that I know how to do. I know how to run this, and it makes me money. And I was off and on. I was doing competitive swimming, even as an adult. I've done various things with swimming, but then I started, at the end of 2019, I was kind of done with swimming for a while, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't really feeling like something I want to pursue. So I started to look at selling it in December of 2019. I was like, I need to just sell this and move on because it's not really what I want to do. And I was talking to the Empire Flippers and all that. We had already made some progress, and then COVID hit, and it was like, there's no way all events were canceled. Everything was canceled. So then that's when I just said, I'm just going to put this on the back burner. I'm not going to try to sell it or do anything with it.
And how did you transition to your current project, or was there anything else in between? And do you want to let us know what it is? Because I don't know much about it, but the website looks pretty cool. Do you want to explain what it is and how you got into it?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was building Try Swim Coach, one of my struggles was always finding developers and designers. So I was like, that was a struggle all the way through. I always had to hire people, find them on Fiverr or Upwork or somewhere. And it seemed like I had someone for a while and then they would disappear, or nothing was never smooth. So I thought, I want to start like kind of like an agency that does development, WordPress development and design. And so I started that in 2017. And the first version of that, it's called Work Hero, and the site is useworkhero.com. And the first version it was design and development. And the first few months were pretty tough because I didn't have a great plan. It was just kind of like, I think I'll just put it out there and see if I can get some customers. And then eventually, through networking and things like that, we started getting customers. And but along the way, what was happening was it just felt like too much. Like we were trying to do too many things. I was hiring designers and developers, and it was tough to manage. And the design aspect of it was like really not. It was not something that I enjoyed at all, like managing.
Where were you finding the designers just from Upwork? Were you taking them on like on a full-time basis, or were you just paying for their hours as you got more work?
Yeah, we did both. I mean, we had my partner's sister was a designer, so we hired her. That was our first designer, and she was pretty much our full-time person. And then we started getting busier, and then we hired another one from Upwork, and but it just really wasn't. It was really fun, when I think back on it, it was fun to start that business and to get everything going. I really enjoyed that. And then we were, building our systems and all that. But then, eventually the design just became like this burden. And the development part, I think we were making progress and getting better at. But the design was just like this. It was just this burden that I just didn't enjoy. And then I went to DCBKK in 2019, and I was talking to somebody there, and he's like, and I was just telling him all my problems, and he's like, "Why don't you just do just WordPress development? Like, why do you have to do design?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." So we dropped all the design. We just completely switched the entire business. We redid the website. We basically lost all the customers that we had because they were, some of them were doing design, but we kept one. So we had one customer in December 2019, and then we just built it from there. And we just focused, and it was so much better. Like instantly, like as soon as we made this switch, it was like this instant, like, this is the business that we should be doing. So,
and you decided to do like, you pay a monthly fee and you get unlimited or certain unlimited tasks, like development tasks.
Yeah. So it's a productized service. So it's a monthly subscription, and we have different levels depending on, how much time the customer needs. So we started with just working with like coaches and solo businesses, solo entrepreneurs. And that was a great start because we were able to get a lot of customers pretty quickly when we made that transition. Eventually, we got a customer that was an agency, a marketing agency, and they were by far our best customer. Like they were able to, it was much easier to work with them. And so we started thinking, well, maybe that's a better customer than these solo businesses. And it turns out that was the case, and we could charge more money and have a better, just kind of gear what we do for agencies that have multiple clients that, that they can do white label. You can use this in many different ways.
Interesting. Our website's WordPress, and I'm looking now. We want to redo our site, and I'm looking at some services with design and stuff. Because here's the thing, like, we need some changes in development to our website. We're always moving things around menus, nothing crazy, but we're always making changes. But we also need design, So it is, I can see why there's a need for it, but then why is design harder for development? Because surely if you're doing a monthly fee, and people need unlimited revisions, they pay for them. It doesn't matter if you're constantly changing it, but as long as they're paying for it, why does it matter? Like, or is it just design so personal that everyone gets pissed off because they don't like your designs? Or what was the problem?
Exactly. The back and forth, the finding designers. I wasn't really good at hiring designers, apparently, because the one that I actually hired, the one after the first one, didn't really work out, and there was a lot of problems there. And that was where I was like, it's problem after problem after problem. And everyone's got their own taste with design. I just didn't think it was our forte. I think we were, we understood the development side. We just didn't really have a good grasp on the design, even though I thought, well, that's where I struggled. So I thought, that should be where I understand what business owners need. But I don't know. Those guys, there's, what is it? Many Pixels and Design Pickle. And it's amazing what they've done. I mean, I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned DCBKK. That's the conference. We're both in this entrepreneurs group called the DC. But Design Pickle he's Russ. I think he's in the DC as well, isn't he?
He was. I don't know if he still is, but he wrote some posts like early on, and they were pretty helpful with us starting our business. Like just talking about how he got his initial start, and there's some interest. It's an interesting story.
Yeah. So you mentioned who did you get into business with a partner, and why did that come about?
Yeah.
Is it a good idea?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So my partner, we met. I mentioned earlier that when I was doing my podcast, and I met this guy from Brazil, and at the time he was a college kid, and we were just talking. He was doing some admin work for me. We really hit it off. We have the same philosophy. He's a libertarian. He's like interested in improving the world and things like that. And for a while, he did some admin work for me for Try Swim Coach, and then we weren't, I didn't really hear from him much for a while. But then I reached out to him when I had this idea to start Work Hero, and I said, I'm starting this new business, and I could actually use some help, and I think you'd be a good person to sort of be our admin and set things up and help with SOPs and things like that. And he wrote back and he said, I'm not only interested in this, I want to be your partner. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, I never even thought, first of all, I hadn't thought about having a partner. Secondly, I thought he was too young. I was like, he's like 24 years old and he was in college like 2 years ago. Like, this doesn't seem like the right thing. But I was like, I'm willing to talk. Like, I'll talk, let's talk, And so we had a conversation, and he gave me a lot of ideas about what he could do besides just, admin work. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So I didn't think about it too much. I just kind of went with my gut. I'm like, yeah, it seems kind of crazy. We've never met. He's in Brazil. English is not his first language. He learned English just 2 years prior to us meeting. So it was kind of crazy, but I felt like it just felt right. And so, so in some ways it worked out. In some ways it was a huge challenge, like early on, but we've kind of ironed out a lot of the kinks, and now we've been partners for 4 years, I guess, and it's overall it's been amazing. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. So, but you asked. Oh
no, carry on.
Yeah. Okay. So you were asking about, is it a good idea to have a partner? I'd say it's a terrible idea. It's like they never work. It almost never works out. Like partnerships are like marriages. It's like it's just probably not going to work out. But this one, I think, because we, over the course of working together, we became, pretty good friends. And the fact that I don't care what his age is. It's like, it's just more about how we're working together, how much he's contributing. I mean, there's a lot of other factors. So I don't worry about, I did after the first, few months, I wasn't worried about how old he was. So it just sort of, it sort of worked out. And he, he continued to improve on his English and continued to develop new skills. And so, it's kind of like we've grown together. So.
Yeah. And how quickly did it get to the point where you actually sustained, like making a living, enough money to support yourself in the business?
Yeah. So that was right around the middle of 2020, actually. Before that, it was a huge struggle. And we were, every month was like, are we going to make enough to keep going? I mean, literally, I was going to quit in October of 2019. I was on the verge of just dropping the whole thing and quitting. Until I went to DCBKK. Really, that was the turning point where I was like, no, I want to do this. I want to make this thing happen. But I was ready, because we had so many months that were just like, I'm putting my own money into it, and it's just like, I don't think this is going to work. So.
Yeah, and I guess you must have had some savings or investments or something to keep going in these kind of times.
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
I did. Yeah. So I was able to self-fund. I never thought about getting investment money, like VC money or anything like that. I just didn't. It didn't feel like the right fit. There was one point where I met somebody that was like an accelerator, and I thought maybe that's what I want to do. Like, go to this accelerator, and then they kind of like help you with your business, and they help you grow it a little bit, and then they take a percentage. And I ran this by my partner, and he's like, no, let's not do that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It didn't feel right, but it just seemed like, oh, we could go, so much faster if we have this accelerator. And, but yeah, other than that, I never considered getting outside money.
It's interesting. I almost went down that route. We had a SaaS. Well, when I started this current business, which was 2011, the first incarnation, we made like a learning management system for schools integrated with Google. It's kind of basic, but it wasn't one at the time. I mean, now Google has one called Google Classroom. So, but it wasn't at the time. So we applied for this accelerator called Imagine K-12, which is actually part of Y Combinator now, but at the time it was like an EdTech offshoot. And we almost got in. We had all these interviews, and we went out to San Francisco and met all the guys. And then what happened was there was an existing company. I probably won't mention the names. I actually still know the guys, but they lobbied because they were doing something kind of similar, and they lobbied against us getting in. And they told us afterwards that was why we didn't get in. So I was so close to doing that. And I often wondered what would have happened if I'd done. I think it would have been a good experience. I think it was 3 months or 6 months. I can't remember. You move out to San Francisco, and you only go there once a week, really. So it's kind of, you don't really need to be there. I'm sure nowadays it's just online. Right. But but my business, like, it's interesting the partnering. I have a business partner now, but we've been working together for 8 years. He was one of the first. He came to one of my first ever events in Bangkok, and he was a teacher. And he actually only left his teaching job 2 months ago. He was gradually working more and more and more. But he had he was a maths teacher, but had really light workload. So and I know him so well. We become friends, and he was basically, he was on such a, nothing's really changed because he was on a really good profit share deal. But I'm just, his fix is now higher. But that has worked out for me in a partnership in terms of someone that I've worked together with for a long time, and it's gradually been increased. But I'm terrified of having a partner, someone I didn't know very well or something, because it can go wrong. You see it go wrong all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough thing. I'm amazed that I'm still that we're still going and it's still working well. And and I think there's a lot that goes to that. It goes with that too. I think you have to have a good sense of humor, and take things a little bit more lightly. Like, I think that's the good thing about my partner is, like, I think he's got that kind of Brazilian spirit where it's like things are like, he's optimistic, and it's not there's not this heaviness to our partnership. It's kind of like, we're gonna do our best, and that's it. There's no no getting angry or anything like that.
Definitely. Now, what does your day and week look like? I'm curious. That's why I always love to hear what people do. I mean, how many hours do you work? What sort of tasks do you do? Do you do work in the mornings? Like, what's a typical day and a typical week in a life look like of running like a business like this?
Yeah. So I do a lot of things where I'm moving around a lot. I think I work much differently than most solo entrepreneurs, because I don't have an office here. I have a home, kind of a home office, and I don't have a team here. There's nobody in the US on my team. We've got about 7 people, I think, now, and they're all spread out all over the place. And so I can only sit still for so long. I don't enjoy I don't enjoy sitting behind a computer. It's not me, but at the same time, I kind of have to do that when I'm running a business like this. So I do things like, I'll start out like in the morning, I have a whole morning routine, and then I get going on work, and I'll usually work for a couple of hours and then have some breakfast. And then a lot of times, if I don't have any calls, I try not to schedule too many calls in the afternoon, then I'll go out and work at a coffee shop. And I really enjoy, there's a lot of them around here in Austin, and I really enjoy when there's other people around me doing things, like there's some sort of energy there that I don't know why. I don't need it to be quiet. I'm fine with a little music playing and with people talking and all that. I actually enjoy that. And so I'll usually do that for, maybe a couple hours there. And then I go hit the gym, and, and it's like, that's kind of my day. And I don't do a lot of work at night. So it's mostly like trying to schedule the calls, early in the day, and then doing the other types of work in the afternoon. And then, my evenings are pretty free.
It's interesting. Yeah, I hate working in the evening. Even like this it's now 5:30. This is like, I'm like, I wanted to chat to you. And it's when you talk to people in the US, you've got to compromise. But even this is like, I'm so much fresh in the morning. I like to go off and do some sport or something in the afternoon. It depends where I am. But if I'm, I spend a lot of the year in Austria, so I spend a lot of time snowboarding or whatever. And evenings, I hate working in the evenings, but I've got a wife and children now, I've got young kids. So when I was single, I used to work in the evening, but I still think I didn't enjoy it. I just get into it because I'm at home, there's things to deal with, but I like just to chill in the evening, get into a relaxed state of mind. I think,
well, that's what made Thailand so hard for me. When I was there and I was living there, I was trying to run this business, and it was the same. Like, my calls were 10, 11 p.m. and I'm like, this is not what I want.
That's the worst thing. People who live in Asia who have American customers, it's just night work. And I that's what I don't like, because my business is, I've got American, and now the American part is really growing, which is I am happy with it, but I'm unhappy with it because I don't like the time zones. The Asian business, I've also got Asian, but like, for me, working with Asia is amazing, because it's like, so I'm in the Middle East now, but normally I'm in Europe. So Asia's like 5 to 6 hours ahead, which is great. So I wake up early. Quite often I'm up like 5 or 6. And it's great. I can just bang out a couple of hours. They're ahead, and then they go home early, so they don't bother me after a certain time, which is perfect, America, on the other hand, they don't get up until like 4 p.m, and then they start sending me emails in the evening. So I don't like it. I just say to the guys in America, look, I'm not going to do calls in the evening. I mean, I have to do it occasionally, but really occasionally. Like I don't know about you, but I've got a pathological hatred of meetings. I do anything not to have meetings. Like if I even have one meeting on my calendar, I'm like, oh shit.
Right.
Yeah,
there's this phenomenon that happens with having meetings where, let's say, like if I have a meeting at 10 a.m. and then another one like 11:30 a.m. The time in between those two meetings is so difficult because I don't want to start anything new. Because I'm like, oh, I got that meeting coming up and I got to be prepared. And it's like, I'm very similar with that. I don't want to have a calendar full of meetings. It's never.
My new philosophy now is when I send people my calendar link, I only put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on. I never put Thursday, Friday. I just try not to, and I was doing just Monday, Tuesday, but that was a bit too hard. But now, like, if I can handle it, I won't schedule any meetings Thursday, Friday, and if I can help it, I won't schedule any meetings Wednesday. That's that's cool. So at the beginning of the week, I get it all out. Sometimes you want to do a deal, or I work with Google. You kind of got to do what they want.
Right.
But I try to, because that's what I like, the freedom of my own business is not having to do meetings. My first job was an investment bank, and it was just meetings all day, and you were expected to like do technical stuff in between it, like your job in the cubicle, it's like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, that's that. I do this. I do a similar thing. I do Mondays, no meetings ever on Mondays. So it's like, really? I made a rule about like maybe, I think it was about a year and a half ago. I heard somebody say this, that they never do meetings on Mondays. And I'm like, that sounds perfect. So I started blocking off all my Mondays and Mondays are just catching up on things and, like just trying to stay off of like phone calls and things like that.
Maybe that's a good idea, because Mondays for me, I do all the crap I don't want to do, like financial stuff, like, that I just get it all out of the way. But maybe it's good to thinking Monday is like time to do all, the things I want to do and the opportunities, and then get that stuff done later. I don't know. I like to have the end of the week quiet. I kind of get a bit more tired by the end of the week, and I like to chill a bit more Thursday, Friday.
Right.
I mean, here I've been doing 3-day weekends, because the Middle Eastern weekends, Friday, Saturday. I'm not sure if that's the weekend in this part of the world.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So I didn't know until I came here. So nothing. Everyone's. The kids are at preschool here. They're at, some hang out. But then I'm doing this Sunday because everyone I work with isn't working on Sunday. So I'm doing this. I have like a 3-day weekend every weekend, and it's fantastic. Like, even though I work for myself, I can choose whatever schedule I want. You tend to fall into a 9 to 5, at least I do, because customers are on 9 to 5, friends around you are on 9 to 5. You just not 9 to 5, but sorry, Monday to Friday is what I mean to say. But now with this, I'm pretty clear. I don't do anything Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and like it's great. I play golf on Friday morning, do family stuff afterwards, go on the paddleboard. It's great.
Nice.
Cool, man. Look, I've got to shoot off, and I'm sure you have. It's like great we got to talk.
I
know we had a lot of backwards and forwards, but cool to chat, man. And where should people find you online? Like, where's the best place to find you?
So my podcast is Freedom Lovin', and it's freedomlovin.com. There's no G at the end. It's
no G. McLovin.
Yeah, exactly. And then my WordPress site is useworkhero.com.
Nice. All right. Cheers, Kevin.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. Cheers.